Hello and welcome to the Nearly Show. I'm Chris Ifso, Doctor of Nearlyology and author of What Didn't Quite, the Nearly novel, and I'm going to read you a little bit of that today. It's from the middle. Jamie has gone to Tate Modern to meet his daughter, Pippa, who he expects will be angry with him or fed up with him following him and his wife's split up, Freya. And they find that they're in the midst of a piece of art, of performance art, called These Associations, which was by Tino Sehgal, and it was on at the Turbine Hall in 2012, and I was a participant in it. So it was a real kind of pleasure and an honour, really, to try to describe it in prose. So there's that, two sections about that place and that setting. And in between is the kind of weird dream sequence where Freya, who is a kind of digital consultant, wakes up from a dream. So I hope it all makes sense, and I hope you enjoy it. And the first section is called Play Worker's Daughter. Arriving early, Jamie stood in the gallery bookshop, nervously flicking through a hefty hardback catalogue of a show about that outsider art, while trying to find the right words to say to his daughter. He glanced at himself in the glass wall of the store to make sure his lips weren't moving. So strong was the stream of words boiling in him, bubbling with hurt, self-justification, guilt, fury. He was determined to be someone who chose to hang out in art galleries. But he knew in his gut that this was Freya territory. He was one lost fish adrift amidst the shoals in this cultural aquarium. A touch on the arm, and there were Pippa and Sophie beside him. Father and daughter hugged tearfully amidst the Hockney calendars and Matisse T-shirts, while her girlfriend hovered. Jamie hadn't been surprised, had felt more proud than shocked when Pip announced her feelings for best friend Roxanne, but was fearful that daughter would turn against Dad in the process of coming out. The thing with Roxanne didn't last, but now she seemed deeply happy with Sophie, fellow member of the puppet theatre company which toured shows round children's festivals and parties, but aspired to do serious work at what they called the bleeding edge of contemporary puppetry. Jamie had joked with Martin that he had no problem with Pippa being gay, but why couldn't she, the play worker's daughter, be attracted to a lesbian plumber or banker or someone with a skill a bit more useful and lucrative? I'll see you back here in an hour, Pip. I'd love to do art with you two, but I have a meeting I need to get to, Jamie. Sorry. They brushed cheeks, and Sophie, a thoughtful woman who wore a pink knitted hat, big coat, and a friendly but anxious expression, slid tactfully away. It's difficult to know what to say to you, Pippa. Mum phoned me, but it doesn't make much sense yet. I'm still confused about what's going on with you two, Dad. Me as well, my love, but you know, long-term relationships, it's complicated. You're a married couple, not a Facebook status. What do you think of this T-shirt? Once Jamie had paid for it, they left the shop and wandered through rooms of the permanent collection, chatting and pointing out paintings they liked. So what is it that's so complicated? I don't know. I don't know how to talk about it, really. Oh, Dad, you sound so adolescent. We're family. You can be completely open and honest with me. What about our sex life or lack of it? Oh, okay, no, Dad, maybe not that bit. About our arguments and my deep sense of worthlessness? Yes, well, maybe someone else is better. Do you have any friends? Of course. I mean, other than Martin. I love Martin to bits, but he's not proved much good at long-term relationships so far. No, perhaps not. Hey, look at this nude woman in a red armchair. Looks a bit like Sophie. Sophie's not quite that curvy. Cover me from that attendant while I take a picture. I might make a puppet version for her birthday. Mum says losing your job made you impossible to talk to. You bottled things up and got miserable. She's in overdrive now, setting up this bloody Nearly thing, fundraising like crazy. Mind you, she seems pretty miserable living at Rose's. Oh, well, that's encouraging. She's miserable about something. Oh, Jesus, Dad. Have I gone to all this trouble growing up and coming out only to have my folks turn into stroppy teenagers? Sorry, Pip. I go round to see Mum for advice about my career and end up pissed and stoned listening to her and Rosalind reminiscing about their experiences with hallucinogens. My dad meets me at art spaces and tells me about his sex life. About his lack of one, nearly tells you. That bloody word again. Why couldn't you two get an allotment or buy a puppy like other people's mums and dads? They left the gallery and made for the escalator down to the ground floor. It must be hard for you, love. Yeah. Anyway, I actually do need to talk to you about me for a change. Whether you and Mum might lend us some money to help us set up the puppet theatre. I know it's not a good time, but any of that baby boomer fortune you might be able to share with your progeny? She was affectionate but serious, an edge of annoyance in her voice. His daughter had a life of her own which she wanted to concentrate on without being upstaged by her parents, fond of them as she might be. Your mum's the one to talk to about that, though. As you well know, I'm phobic about money. Pip scowled, welled up with tears. You've left home now, Dad. Time to learn to stand on your own 2 feet. She turned and ran to the down escalator, disappeared into the crowd. Pippa! Listen up. Freya Redcoat, super sleuth, today in new Wellington boots, splashes through mud on the tail of the villain who came in the night and tried to steal her treasure. She's following the tracks of his shoes, footprints waterlogged, fading fast, but can still see traces and hurry after them further into the marsh. Dangerous territory this, creaks and moans of wind in the trees, and too late she hears him, feels his rough hand clamping down on her face as she's lifted up into the air, legs thrashing, but he grips her tight. Redcoat bites back, sinking her teeth into his money-grubbing fingers. He growls and drops her, and she flees, quick as a flicker, into the reeds. Hears him cursing and cursing. She presses herself down onto the cold, soggy earth, plucks a blade of grass and expertly slots it between her fists to make a reed, then blows. Freya jolted awake to the glare of her laptop shining. She began again to read the presentation she was planning. Good morning and welcome. I am Freya Redcoat, founder and CEO. Here we offer the facility for members of the public to talk to our expert to help them achieve resolution. With funding earmarked to reinvigorate our high streets, the nearlies are harvested, exhibited on the walls and posted online. T-shirts come in all sizes. I am Freya, digital guru, feminist icon, grown girl detective. It's a delight to be here with you today, and by way of introduction, let me say, I can multitask and touch type, can Skype, tweet, twist, boogie and boggle, can install a WordPress blog with widgets, can throw a horse over a sunset and into an ocean stinking of coriander seeds crushed with gemstones. And I am on fire here this morning with you in serried rows, and I pacing the stage like a lioness, my microphone clipped to my face, and the hall ringing with my pithiness and sassiness. Listen up, world. I'm the tip, I'm the top, and I'm going to mint it with this. By next year you'll all have one. We'll sit on trains twiddling yours. We'll tell your friends you didn't know how you'd get by without it. Articles will be written, documentaries made about how it's rotting the mind, reshaping our frontal lobes, reforging contemporary identity. Okay, so looking at it now, technologically it's not so complex. Okay, so it looks like a mirror. But see what you do? Put this mirror under your nose and look down so you feel like you're walking on the ceiling and the sky. Step outside now and everything is giddysome and difficult. This gizmo is a tool to help us be in one place whilst imagining another, walking on real ground but seeing something else. Embracing your nearliness involves this kind of shift. No regrets, allowing yourself to be in more than one place at once, be more than one version of yourself simultaneously. And even as Freya hears herself utter this guff, she knows she's also dreaming, the front row containing a bizarre assemblage of celebs and old school friends looking nothing like themselves. She feels this elation, the applause, the warm fug of successfulness slipping away. As she opens her eyes a crack and sees she's staring up at the ceiling on the sofa in Rosa's front room, which smells of stale wine and cat litter. Above her stands Rosa in a spotty pink nightie, proffering a mug of tea, which she slops down beside the mattress, then yawns and yanks open the curtains. Damn it, thinks Freya. I'm late. From the Little Book of Nearly. Describe or draw some of the pictures you have in your mind of things that didn't quite happen to you. Use collage and colour. Think of a place you nearly live. In a safe place, ask your partner to close their eyes, then lead them across the room as you describe it to them. When you've finished, both sit down and write. These associations. In the dark immensity of the turbine hall, Jamie searched for his daughter. How could he have been so thoughtless, too bloody self-obsessed to respond to her needs? The space was packed with women looking a bit like Pip. There were no artworks on show in this cathedral of culture, but plenty of people Pippa's age milling about. He spotted her talking to a woman, presumably a friend she'd bumped into. His daughter stared blankly at him, then stuck out her tongue, a sign that she wasn't too angry with him. But she carried on with her conversation. He stood at a distance, thinking how thin she looked, and yet comfortable in her skin. Actually, that fringe is quite stylish, thought Jamie. A flurry of people rushed past suddenly, and the young woman talking to Pippa broke off to join them, running suddenly away. Who was that? No idea, Dad. They became aware that a flock of people were milling about amongst the tourists and school groups. It was hard to tell who was or wasn't part of the group. Some kind of a performance or installation, presumably. Most were young and athletic, gazelles in tight jeans and thick trainers pounding on the polished concrete floor. But there were others too. An old bearded man like Father Christmas, a skinny guy with long hair, glasses and baggy yellow shorts, a wiry white-haired woman, all chasing each other round in circles, playing some kind of secret game of tag amidst the punters. Sorry, Pip, of course we'll lend you the money. I'll talk to your mum. Father and daughter walked arm in arm further into the hall, which sloped down like a car park forecourt into the dark, heard the squeak of soles and exhalations of breath, intimate grunts of exertion as this tribe moved, playing a variation on tag. Pippa broke away from her father to join the game. He watched her running, circling around the girl who'd approached her. He wanted to join this swarm himself, but felt too self-conscious. Suddenly the whole lot of them came to a halt. The lights cut out, and in the dark the flock began to chant. Dozens of voices in unison, a cloud of strange song. Jamie and his daughter walked amongst them, able to view the figures like they were living sculptures, observing how each person chose to arrange their limbs and place themselves in relation to each other. Jamie tried to catch the meaning of the words being sung in sonorous harmony, then in percussive shouts, but couldn't quite make them out. No one gave a command, but at a preordained moment the flock dispersed, began running with all their might up the huge grey concrete expanse. The happening appeared to be over. But as Jamie and Pip prepared to leave, the flock careered thunderously back past them, down to the shadowy back of the hall, then a few seconds later, slightly more slowly ran up again, a wave of movers, of all ages and nations, younger, older, fatter, lamer, each at their own full pelt, then very gradually slowing to become a silent, stately procession of meditators, with which Jamie and Pippa found themselves walking, beside small children who copied the participants earnestly and with delight, joining in their inexplicable labour as they started now to hum, and together processed towards the body of the hall where watchers on the bridge looked down. And all the time individual members of the herd would separate themselves off to attach themselves to a watcher and start to tell them something, some kind of a story. A young man materialized out of the gloom, breathless from running, and launched into an anecdote. I used to work in the city and took the same train every morning. One day trains were cancelled due to snow, and I got chatting to a woman on the platform about it. For a year after that, we'd bump into each other every few days and chat for a few minutes until the train arrived. I was engaged to be married, and she was having work problems, so our conversations were short but intimate. As my wedding day approached, I realised that my chats with this stranger were more important than any I had with my fiancée. We understood each other like we'd been married for years. I imagined telling her this. I imagined us staying on the train and getting off together to start a new life. But something must have changed about her work routine. She didn't appear on the platform for a while. As the weeks passed, I realised I'd never see her again. The first time we met, I'd asked her name, but soon forgot it, and was too embarrassed to ever ask again, so I had absolutely no way to trace her. "Is that a true story?" Jamie asked. "It is, isn't it?" Pippa said to the man. "Did you get married?" The young man touched his fingers to his lips and slipped away into the dark. Now a flame-haired young woman appeared at their side, startlingly beautiful, talking rapidly in an Eastern European accent about her bizarre dreams and their symbolism. To Jamie's amazement, Pippa started describing some of her nightmares in reply. They spoke intensely, openly. After a few minutes, the girl also smiled and ran off. A woman with short blonde hair peeled away from the crowd and began speaking to Jamie, talking about her struggle with alcoholism when she was a student in Stockholm. They started chatting about the difference between Swedish and English culture, and Jamie reminisced about their holiday in search of Freya's semi-imaginary roots. We found Swedish drivers stuck to the speed limit because they took it for granted that restrictions were wisely imposed for public safety, whereas British drivers wait till they're out of sight of CCTV, then speed like mad. The stranger laughed, touched his arm, slid away, and the group stilled again, configured across the immensity of the space, sitting or standing in clusters, and softly they chanted again in unison, something about creating a new ground, even in the technological age. Another hand tapped Jamie on the shoulder, but this was Pippa's, and now she pointed at her watch. "Hey, Dad, I'm sorry too, okay. It's me getting emotional. I ought to go and find Soph, but that was amazing. Love you." She squeezed him tight. How wonderful to be held. He'd taken it for granted that his daughter would take her mother's side for sisterly or daughterly reasons. Now she gave him one last kiss and was gone into the crowd. After they parted, he looped back to the turbine hall, fighting back tears. He sat on the cold, hard floor in the huge, dark room, watching the flock, wondering if another thrilling stranger might appear at his side and swap intimacies. They all rushed past. Now, as he looked up into the immensity of that echoing space, he found himself humming. A shoot of fresh green songs sprouted in his head and swayed there, refusing to settle until he'd stood up and walked through the movers, up the hall and out into the sunshine by the Thames, had pulled out his mobile, pressed on the screen with his thumb to open an app for taking voice notes that he'd downloaded, and very quietly sang to it a fragment of words and melody. On the way home, he texted Freya. "How much do we have in our savings? Daughter needs Dosh."